Welcome to A Better Divorce podcast, where we have conversations about the emotional, financial, and legal issues that are on your mind or should be on your radar if your goal is to keep your divorce out of court. I'm collaborative divorce attorney and mediator Andrea Vaca, and I know that how you divorce matters to your long-term well-being. That's why it's my mission to help you have a better divorce with as little acrimony as possible, so that you can create the best life possible on the other side of your marriage. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Andrea Vaca, and I'm happy to welcome Anthony Damasceno to the podcast today. Anthony is the author of two books, The Empty Nest Blueprint, and the most recent book is The Empty Nest Blueprint for Single Parents, which came out just this year, right, Anthony?
Yeah, it came out in June. It's exciting.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know your goal is to help current and future empty nesters navigate this transitional time so that they can set themselves up for their best possible life after the nest is empty. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to our conversation.
Too, because in the 30 plus years that I've been a divorce attorney, the one trend that I have seen that sticks out most to me is that gray divorce, the gray divorce phenomenon. So, and I believe you shared this statistic with me that 1 in 10 divorces in 1990 were with people over 50. And today it's 1 in 3. And I knew it was more. I just didn't know how much. The other trend I've seen over that time, because I graduated from law school in 1992, so it's, the same timeline here. The other trend that I've seen is that women are the ones who are primarily initiating those gray divorces. So I wonder, as someone who is an expert in the empty nest and with people in this age group, what do you see as the driving forces behind these changes in divorce?
Yeah, just an interesting stat, and I promise I won't throw a million stats at you. But yes, 66% of all divorces are initiated by women. And over the past 10 years, that fluctuates. It's been as high as 77%, right? But I think in 2023, it was 66% women, 39% men, and only 15% jointly. So it's astounding. Like you said, there's definitely some things happening. And to your point, I think, that we've seen this trend. Some things that kind of fall into that trend, and I've done a lot of research on this. You are an expert on this topic, but it is, longer lifespans. People are living longer, so their kids leave the nest. They're in their late 40s, early 50s. They're looking at each other and, do we still connect? Do I want to re-up for another 30 years with this person? Right? 50 years ago, people were living to their late 60s. Now people are living to 80s and beyond. So I think that realization comes apart. You see drift in marriages, finances, preparation for retirement become issues, infidelity, intimacy needs change over time. And of course, empty nest syndrome, right? Which is, I liked your intro where it says financial and emotional issues. And this is really a big emotional issue for many parents. And I think it becomes a triggering point.
So how do you define empty nest syndrome? What exactly is that?
Yeah. So empty nest syndrome is defined as the feelings of grief or loss or sadness as your children leave the nest. And, for some of us, this is just a thing that happens. Sure, you hug your child goodbye, you're sad, you move on. For others, if you've spent the last 20 years being the coach of their softball team, or you are a stay-at-home mom, having children or that child can become a centerpiece of your life, right? It's your social outlet. They're your confidant. They're your purpose for getting up every day. And when you lose that, or that person leaves, that there could be an identity crisis, so to speak. What is my purpose now? A loss of control. Not only a marital stress, which is probably happens in many cases, an emotional toll. And then, of course, there's just anxiety where, how is my children going to cope on their own? Have I done all the right things to keep them safe away from my, helicopter parenting eyes?
And I the other thing I see is parents have like one parent could be very hyper parenting focused and the other is not. And that could cause stress too. It causes stress during the marriage, when they have
Yeah,
different parenting styles. And I think at this time in their life in an unhappy marriage, it even causes more stress with how they've been parenting. So that all of these things that you're talking about can just make divorce. And if you haven't been happy in your marriage, it makes the divorce so much more difficult.
right.
To,
And a lot of people, I'm sure you see this. A lot of people, uh, aren't filing for divorce or considering divorce until the children leave. So it's a
yeah,
transitional time. We know that, and
yes,
so it's a transitional time for some who have it planned out, like we just talked about, or at that transition they reevaluate. They reevaluate their career, their relationship with their children, their relationship with their spouse, and many times it makes sense. We're not the same two people we were 20, 25 years ago. We both want something different.
I it so many clients do come. They'll consult with us at maybe they have children who are in high school and they're like, well, and maybe their kids have been struggling a bit and they want to wait till they get to college. And we talk to them about that that's an even more stressful time for you and your child and for yourself. I don't know why there's this myth that there's this magical time in a child's life when divorce is now going to be easier for everybody if they're in college. It's not.
Yeah.
It could be much more difficult. So if somebody is, you know, considering divorce, and you see the empty nest on the horizon, or maybe a partially empty nest. Maybe your first or second child's going to college, and there might still be a teenager. That's still an empty nest kind of pseudo time, right? A little more freedom for the parents. How would you suggest someone plan um, at this stage if they're not happy?
Yeah, I think your point is a great one. And if you think about a married couple with children, so with a divorce, hopefully it's amicable, and those two people go on and have a healthy relationship moving forward. But you have to remember the children in this situation. And the worst time, probably, to spring something on your children is when they are out of your house, away in college. If you want to establish a deeper connection or want the ability to kind of frame the narrative, I would do that when they're there in your house, when they're present. You could talk about it over dinner. You see them every day. What I see and have seen is a child leaves or multiple children leave, then the parents get divorced. They're not in control of the relationship with their child anymore. When your child's in your house, you're in control of that relationship. When they're out of the house, they're in control of the relationship. They can see you, they can decide not to talk to you, they can ignore you. They become the adult. But
Yeah,
but when they're in high school or junior high or elementary school, you have the ability to have that communication with them. They're interacting with you, they're living with you. So I think it would, I wholly agree with you. It there's no good time to do it, but I think you're right. There's nothing magical about waiting till they leave the house. In fact, that could cause more issues.
I just was speaking to somebody this week where that exact thing happened, where they decided to wait until the children or the child went to college. And now I've learned that the child is not speaking to the
Yeah,
parent, not
yeah.
returning calls, not answering text messages, asking for money, taking the money that they need, um, but not, but they're angry,
Yeah.
and this client gave this a lot of thought and really thought that this would be the best time to do this and to wait, and he was terribly, terribly unhappy in his marriage. I was really sad to hear how the reaction of the child, because now the other parent is in their ear and is framing the narrative of
Of
what
course.
happened to the marriage and why the marriage ended, and they're not in the same home. They don't have the same ability to have this conversation. So really good point, and I saw it firsthand this week. So
Yeah,
this
and
really,
the a child, one in four families in the U.S. have some sort of disconnection or disownment. right? So a sister isn't talking to a sister, a brother isn't talking to a sister, or a parent or child is not talking to their parent or their child. I mean, I can't think as a parent of a worse scenario than your child disowning you. And uh, and so I talk about this in my books, but I'm sure you talk about this with your clients. An open dialogue and communication with your children as a parent is vital, especially when you're going through an empty nest situation or a divorce, right? It's a major life change. You want them on board, you want them to go through it with you, and be able to at least talk about it. And, again, 1 in 4, I mean, that would be just heartbreaking to have that child, as you said, take the money, but discontinue the conversation and the relationship. You want to set your children up so that they want to come back home, they want to spend holidays with you, they want to be part of your life moving forward.
They're checking in with you. They're letting you know about their day and how school's going, and they're whatever it is. You want to be a
Yeah.
part of their life. Not every day, maybe you're talking to your child, but you want to be able to to be able to check in with them. So let's talk a little bit more about the empty nest. And so now, like, you've successfully, your child's in college, everything's well, but now you've decided we're going to end the marriage. Like, or you see that it might need to happen. Like, what is happening in the empty nesters' lives that is creating more marital stress or bringing this decision to a head?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a lot going on. Again, the empty nest age range, let's call it 44, 45 to late 50s, early 60s for most people. Um, so first off, you're at that age in your life. If you have parents, they are probably in their 70s and 80s. So loss of a parent's health, taking care of a parent. At the same time, you may be taking care of your children. And so they call that the sandwich generation. You're taking care of your parents on the top, you're taking care of your children down below, right? And you're stuck in the middle. Uh, as I'm sure you see, there's midlife crisis. People going through their late 40s, what's my purpose in life?
Yes.
Job security becomes an issue when people are in their 50s. If I lose my job, can I get another one? Job plateauing is another issue. I have gone as far as I think I can go on that career ladder, and so what's next? Obviously, the number one issue for empty nesters, that maybe most people, but empty nesters, is financial issues. Do I have the financial reserves I need to retire? And it becomes, when your kids leave, retirement is looked at as the next stage. And so the realization that maybe you haven't done as much as you thought you did, right? And then of course health concerns with your spouse, menopause. I mean, there are so many things going on with this group. It's not an ideal time to interject any life changing thing. But the advice, to your point, was just to be more aware that these things are happening and that be cognizant of my parents and this and our mortgage and my finances. These are all things that if you think through them, I think you're better prepared just being aware.
Hey listeners, it's Andrea Vaca here, your host of a Better Divorce podcast. If you're looking for ways to navigate your divorce with less conflict and more cooperation, my free ebook, Divorce Without Court, A More Peaceful Solution, can help you do just that. Divorce Without Court shows you how to reach an agreement without court involvement, from understanding mediation and collaborative divorce to learning how to keep your divorce under your control. This book covers it all. You'll even find practical checklists and first steps to help you move forward and guide you through the process. With over 3 decades of experience in family law, I've helped countless couples and families achieve peaceful solutions. Divorce Without Court puts that knowledge in your hands. Whether you're just starting to think about ending your marriage or if you're already in the process, this free ebook will help you have a better divorce. Why wait? Click the link in the episode description to download Divorce Without Court, A More Peaceful Solution. Take control of your future and move forward in your divorce with confidence and composure.
The other thing I think that causes, well, tell me if I'm correct here. I don't know. Am I making a big assumption? for parents that have been very focused on the children and the relationship revolved around the children, parenting the children, taking care of the children, making everything about the kids. When the kids go off to college, there's some, I think you call it drift. The relationship kind of drifts apart. People grow apart, or they realize they didn't have as much in common anymore because it was really all about the children. Is that something is that just like, I don't know, an assumption I make, or do you actually see this? Are there any studies
Oh,
about this?
yeah, that is the number one thing. The irony of being with a partner is, uh, who is the one person you're supposed to love more than anyone else? In theory, it's your partner. Who is the one person you can deprioritize, and they'll understand you and forgive you, right? So, Andrea, you have to show up to work. You have a boss. You have work to do. You cannot deprioritize work. You can't deprioritize your water bill or your electric bill or your mortgage. You cannot deprioritize your children. You have to feed them. You have to make sure they're clothed. You have to get them off to school, take them to soccer practice, whatever that is. And so the one person you end up deprioritizing is your spouse. And, you know, if that's 1 year, if that's 3 years, if that's 5 years, or 20 years of marriage, plus with children, I think that drift occurs. And so it's kind of ironic because that's the person you're supposed to be in love with and bonded to. And then, of course, it's the one person you deprioritize, and it happens a lot. I have done it. I know many. I don't know a relationship where that hasn't happened. So it just kind of sneaks up on you. It's kind of a little tricky, sneaky thing that happens.
Well, and in a way it has to, because you have to keep your children alive, right? And you
Yeah.
can't, your attention can't be everywhere. But it sounds like maybe recognizing it and being aware of it and trying to plan or fix it could be helpful. What else would you advise people to do as they're planning if they see the empty nest approaching? How can someone plan for that best?
Yeah, in my first book, which is more couple focused, it is focusing on that relationship, refocusing on your spouse, understanding the empty nest transition, focusing on your children, and focusing on yourself. So it is very couple oriented. But as I was writing that book, I realized there's a lot of single parents out there, or a lot of parents who will be getting divorced in their empty nest phase. And so I think for them, now, you could still put a plan together for your ex and how you want to interact with them and make them part of your family moving forward. Smart thing to do. You
Yes.
definitely want to have a plan with your children. Again, how you're going to communicate, setting expectations, whether that's grades or money or all of those communication pieces with your children. And then finally, the most important is have a plan for yourself. I think that the one gift a divorced parent has is they will have more time. Essentially,
Mm.
they'll have pockets of free time. Maybe when they don't have the children on the weekend or the children are gone. But without a spouse present, they'll have more time. So, what are they going to do with that time? What goals are they going to achieve? Are they going to start practicing self care? Again, they've probably deprioritized everything else in their life, including themselves. And so it's time to refocus on themselves. It's an opportunity to kind of re-explore and rediscover themselves. I'm sure you see this.
Have And it could be, picking up hobbies or things that gave them much pleasure and they didn't have time for. It could be traveling again. It could be reestablishing friendships. Whatever it is that gives them joy and they probably forgot about. It's
Yeah.
really important. But I think when we were talking before the show, you said something like this is the empty nest years are really the most underrated stage of someone's life, and everyone who has children deals with it, but no one talks about it. It's like the old
Yeah.
menopause. Like everyone talks about menopause now, but now I think the empty nest years, like this is a real stage in life And so why do you think it's happening to everybody? Does everybody think everyone else is dealing with it beautifully and it's only them? Like, why are people not talking about this more?
Yeah, what is strange is parenting is learned, right? We all had parents. We learned from our parents. We learned from our best friends' parents. We've learned from watching television shows and the media what parenting is all about. But 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 getting a divorce, for example, or being an empty nester is not a learned trait. You weren't there when your parents went through their empty nest stage. So you
Yeah.
you didn't see it, you didn't learn it, and again, I'll parallel that to divorce. Even if your parents were getting a divorce while you were there, you didn't really learn the ins and outs and the conflicts and everything that was going on. So it's something that is happening to all of us. However, we have no experience with it. And I was looking for the Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy or What to Expect when you're expecting for empty nesters, and there just wasn't anything out there. And I felt like there's a lot of books and help on divorce, which is great, but there really wasn't for empty nesting. So that's what kind of drove me to it. And I think I think people just kind of blindly roll into it, and then again they're evaluating their marriage, they're evaluating their life, they're evaluating their relationship with their kids, and unfortunately, some of those thoughts can lead to them being depressed, them feeling isolated, them feeling alone, not supported. I mean, all of those things that I'm sure you hear with your clients. And so my goal is your goal, to help people become more aware of how they can go through something in a positive fashion.
Yeah, to recognize that this is a challenging time, get the help they need, find support that they need. It's part of the human experience and the parenting experience. Normalize it to some extent, but find the help that you need, to get through this and be better off on the other side of your marriage or the other side of your nest emptying. Um, the other thing I think we could talk about, and I'd like to hear your feedback on, is for parents who are now they're empty nesting, their children are grown or starting to launch, but at the same time, the parents are ending their marriage and wanting to they've put all this time and energy into parenting, their children are about to launch. But I see a lot of parents are not on the same page on how to support their children or to
Mm.
what extent they should support their children who are now young adults. So whether they're still in college or just about out, a lot of conflict can come up around what to do with the kids. And when people are married, maybe they handle it and they figure it out. But when they're divorced, or divorcing, this is really hard because it brings up financial issues, emotional issues, resentment issues. You were never
Yeah,
there for them. At least you can,
yeah.
and you wanted this divorce. You should pay for their rent. There's so many things. So, how do you suggest parents best prepare for this time when their marriage is ending and they're trying to launch their children at the same time? Any advice there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's civility in that relationship, things are much easier, right? And so I think if a parents as a couple, let's say they're that couple that knows after the kids leave they're going to divorce or something like that, then they could mutually get on the same page about, hey, listen, we may go our own ways, but we want to be part of our children's life moving forward. And and if you think about holidays and who's coming to visit and who comes home for summer and where do they stay and how often am I going to visit? And I see, and I'm sure you see, a lot of divorced parents. One lets them eat all the sugar they want, and the other one says you can't eat any sugar. I mean, it's a lame excuse, but it is that way. And
Sure.
so you don't. I think to the degree in which you can get a parenting kind of alignment, the better. I think in the worst case scenario where you can't, then I think you think about yourself as an individual, the relationship you want with your child, and you focus on that. You cannot control your ex. It's great if you can get on the same page, but if you're not on the same page, it becomes a lifelong marathon of being the best parent you can and supportive to your children. I mean, that's all you could do, right?
That's all you can do. And A lot of financial concerns are going to come up around this time, and your children are going to have financial concerns. Your spouse, you, everybody is. So if you know this is happening, what I'm hearing you say, and what I think could be very helpful, is if you believe that your marriage is probably going to be ending, or you know it will be, but you're putting it off, this is the time to start talking about the fight. How will we support our children? What do they where how do we set boundaries with them?
Yeah.
How do they know what our expectations are for them to get jobs, support themselves, or how much can they use on our credit cards? Whatever it is, like, now's the time to talk about it when you're still in that home together, or that you're still an intact couple. And because if you don't have these conversations at that time, it's going to be a lot harder when you're now separated, and the
Absolutely.
children will pit one against the other and find their find a way. And so it really impacts the divorce. If this is part of the empty nest too,
It is.
the how to support your children. So I think it's important to talk about, because it can just cause so much more stress.
We are all emotional beings, right? And I can't think anything more emotional than your kids departing or you separating from your spouse. So yeah, the degree in which you can get ahead of that and get ahead of the resentment or ahead of some of those things that may sneak in later, great. I
Yeah.
want to ask you a question. So in my years of HR, prior to writing this book, I was in HR. And unfortunately, I had to let a lot of people go in over the course of my years working. And what I found is after someone was terminated or let go or downsized, 6 months later, they were in a better position. Now, when you talk to people through the divorce, are you finding that there is that happiness later in life? For the most part, most people 6 months later, they have that new lease on life and the pressure kind of lifts off of them?
We do. No one ever asks me questions on the podcast, so thanks, Anthony. And I do, and we do check in with our clients regularly after, they've signed their agreement, because we do a non-adversarial divorce, so they've all come to an agreement,
Mhm.
right? No one forced anything on them. They came to an agreement, and we check in, at the 60-day mark, halfway through, maybe a year, and into a year later. And I have to say, I'm I'm I've I can't recall a time when I've been checking in where people are saying they're in a worse place. Usually they are in a better place with their ex. Their children are thriving. They may be in new relationships. They've just taken a vacation with their ex and their child. Like, they
Yeah,
never thought that would happen. Like, weird things happen. You hear, or it could be, she's still the same as she always was, but our agreement is helping us navigate this. And so things are not worse, right? Because you
yes,
can't change someone else. So it's a great question, because people are so afraid to end this marriage, because the enemy is worse than the enemy you don't know, and they don't know what life
right.
can look like. So whether you're losing your job or losing your relationship, if I think if people have the right plan in place and they've given good thought to what they want and why they want it, then we can help them achieve those goals and set them up for success. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And what what I found on the work side is the same thing. They don't realize they're not in a good situation at work. There's
mm,
tension with their boss. There's pressure. They don't really like their job, and in many of those cases, but they can't see 6 months out. They can't see a year out. And and so the goal with the books and with planning, it's planning, it's anticipation, it's realization. It sounds like we are just perfectly aligned with you and your clients, planning, setting expectations, coming into this and coming out of it, realizing that there's an end goal and there's a light at the end of that tunnel.
yes. And everything seems fine. Shining a light on that, down that hallway, and you see the empty nest approaching. How to plan for that? How to think about are we going to be sandwiched, and what are the stressors that we could feel? Just reading your book, I would think, could help well, I know it could, not think. I know it could help anyone, no matter if you're just listening to this and haven't read the book. You don't have to be thinking about divorce. It's for anybody who's thinking, who knows an empty nest is approaching, or you're in the middle of it, or you're dealing with it. So so thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. And as you know, I end every podcast episode by asking our guest for their one better divorce tip. So what do you have to share with us today?
Yeah, I kind of have two. And the first one is a simple one. It's just become more empty nest aware.
Okay.
Realize, to your point, that this transition, this life stage is going to happen to you, and be prepared for that, right? Think through the things and the emotions and what's happening in your life as you go through it. And I think you'll just be in a better space for yourself if you do that. And then I just to reiterate, the second tip would be post divorce, you are going to have more time. So I know I said that before, but I think that is a secret blessing that you have, and that will allow you to prioritize yourself, to do the things you wanted, to learn that second language, learn the guitar, paint again, go on walks, take care of your physical fitness, whatever that is. Utilize that time and plan for that so that you can come out of a tumultuous situation, focusing on yourself and putting yourself in a better position.
Love that. Be prepared and take care of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Well, if people want to pick up your book, I see it behind you there. What's the best way for someone to find you, to buy your book, and find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, you Anthony Damasceno, which is it's a mouthful.com. But if you just Google the Empty Nest Blueprint or the Empty Nest Blueprint for Single Parents, you'll find me out there. So the book's available everywhere on Amazon. And again, if you bought one, loan it to a friend. My goal is not to make a bunch of money. Don't be a writer if you want to make a bunch of money. My goal is to help as many people as possible. So we share that goal ourselves. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
It was great to talk. Thank you. And if you enjoyed today's episode and you want to share this with others, we would love that you do that. You could like and subscribe. It'll help others who are seeking a better divorce to find us. This has been another episode of A Better Divorce Podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode. You've been tuning in to another episode of A Better Divorce Podcast with Andrea Vaca. Thank you for subscribing, leaving your positive comments and reviews, and sharing the show with others. You can watch episodes at vacalaw.com, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can listen through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Bye for now, and remember, you can have a better divorce.